So today I'm going to go into a really interesting use case all around using AI to do a DIY AI scoring. Typically, this has been reserved for companies willing to spend a lot of money, with vendors out there promising AI-based solutions for scoring. But there is a way now that you can build it yourself. I'm still testing this. There's still a few things that we're going to need to figure out, but it's showing a lot. It's showing to be very promising. So I'm going to show you today how to build AI scoring using OpenAI and ChatGPT, how to score your leads to best prioritize them for sales, and to do this in the fraction of the time that it would take to build up, a very custom lead scoring setup within your marketing automation platform like HubSpot or Marketo, and often giving you a better result. So I'll show you how the score can factor in missing data that you might not have in your platform if you're not doing enrichment, how the AI will explain itself to tell you why it gave the score and give you some reasoning behind it, how to set this up. The example that I'm going to go through is a Zapier integration example, but there'll be other ways that you could set this up. And then also how you could potentially train and continue to train the model. So I'm going to get just right into it, share my screen and show you what I've got. Okay, so in this example, what I've done is I've set up an integration between one of my Salesforce sandboxes to the OpenAI API through Zapier. Super easy to set up. If you've got an OpenAI platform account, it's a few clicks in Zapier to get it done like it always is. You can set this up a whole load of ways, connecting it to your marketing automation platform, webhooks, other ways to integrate it. But I'm just going to use Zapier for today just to show a clean and just simple example. So let me take you through what I've got in here. So we've got it set up to trigger based on a new record being created in Salesforce. That will trigger this workflow. So the first step in the workflow that I've got is we're going to be creating a conversation with ChatGPT. So obviously set up ChatGPT, log in, all good, easy peasy. So if I get into what the action actually entails, so the first thing I have in here is I'm going to be including in the user message the details of the person and the company. Now, for this example, I'm going to be really just not using any kind of personal information. Like you see, I don't have, the email address in here, phone number or anything like that. I don't think you particularly need it. There are some concerns about, utilizing OpenAI for anything that requires a lot of data privacy or anything like that. So kind of tread carefully and make sure you're doing things in the way that's going to be protecting data in the best and most secure way. But including just the company name, the website, industry, number of employees, and just a title, I think they're pretty safe for this use case. So within the assistant instructions, I'm now detailing out what I want the AI to do. So first off, I'm going to give it a description of kind of who it is. This is, if you look into any prompt engineering or any content around how to write the best prompts, they always tell you to kind of give the AI a persona to act like. So I'm saying you're a predictive lead scoring engine for B2B tech companies that scores leads based on their propensity to buy and their fit as a potential customer. I don't go on to explain our product. I've made up a product here, but it's a tech product that tracks the B2B funnel and life cycle to give advanced analytics for the marketing and sales team. And then now I'm giving the ideal fit. So the first bit up here, target personas. So with marketing managers all the way to leadership, salespeople, leadership positions, revenue and marketing operations professionals and leaders, the ICP, B2B tech companies, and then giving it some extra information here. So strictly focused on scoring leads to B2B tech companies. If a lead is from a non-tech company, significantly reduce the score to reflect our primary focus on B2B tech. Use your knowledge about well-known companies to fill in missing data points if possible. This is important later on. I'll tell you in a bit. If the company is not well known and the industry is missing, reduce the score to account for the uncertainty. I've added seniority in here is important. If we're whoever better fit with employee size over 1,000. And then, just consider these pain points of my product. Now, you could give way more information than this, way less. This is just an example. But you can see how kind of the natural language of this is me just kind of putting down this information. The alternative is if you're going to build this all over yourself in your marketing automation platform, is you've got to go through and like, okay, this is how much score I want to give to this specific title or this specific industry or this specific seniority, and then go through, give all of those scores, think about all of the ways that, that title could be spelled, and then get all of the contains filters. Like a lot of effort needs to go in to something like this to be able to get a decent output. Whereas here, a few paragraphs and I'm giving the AI the information that it needs to give me a score back. I then ask to format the response back, giving me a score, and then reasoning 1, reasoning 2, reasoning 3. So what I love about this is we get the score, but one of the big issues with scoring, whether it's something that you're creating in your marketing automation platform, or if it's something that you are using maybe a third party to give some kind of score based on propensity to buy, is the black box nature of it. It's always the biggest issue. Sales gets the lead, they wonder why the score is XYZ, and they just get annoyed and they don't trust the model anymore. So this is giving you the reasoning behind that score that you can then add into Salesforce for your reps to be able to see why the score was given. And also for them to maybe help optimize the model going forward, which is something that I can go into shortly. So we're going through here. We go through to some of the next steps. So this is, you can do this in so many different ways. This is kind of particular to Zapier. So because the response that it gets back is going to be those bullet points, right? So the first thing I want to do is extract the number so that I can get the score. And then the next thing I do is separate based on the separator of this dash to be able to create different data points based on each reasoning that I can then use. And you'll see if I go into the update the lead in Salesforce, we're adding the score into here, then the 3 different outputs. So these are the 3 reasons. So let's give it a test. So I've created a few leads in here, 4 leads. The first one is Asana, industry tech, VP marketing, decent number of employees. So this would obviously be a pretty good fit for the product, right? We're targeting marketing and salespeople, B2B tech companies. So let's see. So I'm going to go through and test this step by step for each one, as opposed to just letting the Zap run. So we've got, this is the record here, Asana. Let's go through. Now let's test. All right, come back pretty quick. So this is the content back. Score of 95. Asana is a well-known B2B company with a large employee size, VP of marketing, indicates a decision maker, and the Asana's industry is known, which fits our ICP, increasing the score. So now if I go down through some of these other steps, pulled out the score, pulled out the reasoning, updated Salesforce. All right, let's go have a look at our record. Score of 95 and the reasoning. I think that's a pretty good job. It understood the B2B side, the B2B tech. It understood the seniority of the decision maker. The fact that they would benefit from advanced analytics, that's a nice touch actually. And then obviously just another further clarification of the industry within our ICP. So I think that's a good start. So let's have a look at this next one. This record is an interesting one. The reason being, we don't have an industry and we don't have a number of employees. So I'm going to find this record in here. I found it here. Imagine, you don't have lead enrichment. So you've got a form, they just filled out, title and email or something like that, and company name. So let's test. Let's see what. All right. Pretty good, right? So if we know that head of sales for Snowflake is going to be a good fit. Snowflake is a tech company, B2B tech company, but we didn't have that information. Now, so if we look into here, I'll actually just go through all of the steps. So if we look here, now we didn't actually send any of the information on industry, but obviously OpenAI, the AI knows that Snowflake is a well-known B2B tech company, knows what it does, which aligns to our ICP. As the head of sales, senior decision maker with a high influence on purchasing decisions, good, it increases the propensity to buy. And then they also met our employee size, right? We said we'd be better over 1,000 employees. But nowhere on this record do I have employee size. So what's super powerful about this and what I love is that it's kind of filling in the gaps for us when we don't have enrichment. Enrichment's expensive. Sometimes it doesn't even give the best information. I'm not saying OpenAI is going to give always better information. But what you can see is that it's able to analyze and understand without us needing to feed much more into this. And yes, I know other vendors can do this that are expensive and you would set things up. I'm not saying this is a replacement for some of the big scoring vendors if you've already got it set up. But if you don't have that set up and you're looking for a nice little additional touch on your scoring, or if you're just implementing a new marketing automation platform, you don't want to go through all of that lengthy scoring process. You just want to give it some information and have something set up quite quickly. I think this is super powerful, right? It replaces scoring, it replaces enrichment in a lot of use cases. I'm sure there's going to be missing data, smaller companies, newer companies. There's a concern around the fact that the model's been trained on data prior to 2022. So, if a company was started last year in 2022, it's not going to be included in here. Over time, I'm sure it's going to be better at, have more current and up-to-date data. But even now, you can see this is pretty powerful. And something that you could set up in honestly a couple of hours. So let's go through a couple of other examples and I can go and give my full analysis of this and the considerations. So the next one here is Patagonia. So obviously they're not a very good fit. They wouldn't be part of our, it wouldn't be a lead that you'd want to necessarily send to sales. You really need to, we're hoping for a low score here, right? So let's go into Zapier, go back here, find our record. All right, let's give it a test. Okay. So this looks pretty good. Let's just go through the steps again and have a look at it in Salesforce. Okay, so remember, head of sales, so, it was the right title, right employee size, but not a very good industry. So let's see. The lead's job title is a good fit, but the industry is not a B2B tech company, significantly reducing the score. The company size is over 1,000, but the industry is missing, replacing the score to account for the uncertainty of the lead quality. It does know it's not. That's kind of a bit confusing there. And then the persona may not be feeling the pain points of our products, are further reducing the score. So I don't know. I mean, I'd give this a B minus maybe, because the persona in the context of being part of Patagonia probably wouldn't be feeling the pain point because the persona is working for them. So it's right. Actually maybe it's a B plus because of that. It's right, but then obviously, if it was more simplified, as only looking at this persona would be experiencing this. So B, I'd give that a B. I mean, the overall score 20, good score. So I think that's a solid attempt. Now let's look at this. This is a good bit more interesting. So they are box technology company, but this is someone that's completely not the right title. So let's see how it does. Okay, we'll just go through so we can see it in Salesforce. Okay. So score of 10, the least job title is not a good fit for our target person's ICP. The least industry is a good fit, but their job title and seniority level do not indicate a high likelihood of being involved in the purchasing decisions for our product. The least company size is a good fit, but their job title and industry do not outweigh the low seniority level and lack of fit within our target personas and ICP. Pretty good response. I think that's pretty damn good. I mean, yes, box would be good, but if their payroll interns coming in for this solution, not a good fit. So I think from these examples, I really think that this is promising. So if I go through my conclusions, I'm going to go through some positives, some negatives, and then my overall take on this. So I think one of the most powerful parts of this use case is that you can potentially remove the need to enrich in some cases. Obviously, there's lots of it depends things there, like the most how up to date the data set is that the model's being trained on. If your specific ICP is going to be like a big enough company for there to be enough information historically on the internet about that company, and also the data points that you need, right? Like industry, company size are relatively easy. But, there's a lot of other things that you could put into a lead scoring model to make it a bit more powerful that may not be publicly available or may not be easily like gathered just by the model being trained on the internet. But I think for a good amount of use cases, it's super powerful to be able to reduce that need to enrich. I think probably one of the biggest benefits is the insight into the why. One of the biggest problems I've always seen with scoring is that sales doesn't understand why a particular score was given. So to be able to give that reasoning and in that just natural language, kind of just explained super clearly with clarity, I think is so important. And honestly, something that you could probably add to your existing scoring, even if you're not using it to like generate the score, right? You could even send the score that you're giving it, some of the data points, again, try and get ChatGPT to give you a written explanation, as opposed to you having to try and figure out something like that. Like if you're trying to build this out in your marketing automation platform, just think of like the logic you would have to build that out to say like, okay, if it's something like, if it looks like this, then write this. But if it's this slight variation of that, then write this. And there's like an infinite amount of variables there that you're going to have to consider to be able to have a clearly concise reason why you gave a score. But then to have the AI model come up with that, and it's being proven that this is, pretty good, even at this stage of this technology, I would say that's a really powerful reasoning to be able to use this. One caveat, so I'm using the 3.5 model from OpenAPI. They do have ChatGPT 4. I've been experimenting. The only problem with that is that I don't have API access for that yet, so I have to use the chat. When using the chat, I've been asking it these same questions, but then just putting it into the chat. And I would say it's a 2 to 5x improvement on the output compared to the 3.5 model that I was showing you today. So when that ChatGPT 4 is available by the API, I'm going to retest this and see if the scores and the outputs are better, but they're already really good. But I've just really seen the output is more clear, it'll handle kind of the company information when the information is missing a bit better. And I just think the output was just a lot more succinct and didn't have some of the kind of the little things that I picked up on this example. The other thing is it's super easy to set up. If you're doing lead scoring in Marketo, you could end up with 25 to 50 smart campaigns having to run based on all of the different things that you're including within your scoring. and you have to decide what the score is, and you have to come up with all of this kind of getting people aligned on that. Whereas this probably could take you could get this set up in an afternoon and test it. I've probably spent less than 4 hours just tinkering around with this. Yes, some of the implementation methods might be different, like you might not use Zapier and you might not sync it up to Salesforce, but in general, I think it's pretty easy setup for most revenue operations people out there who've got some kind of technical skills. I think that another benefit is that it's not free, but it's relatively cheap. The API is pretty inexpensive. You do have to pay for it though. It's not free. But if you think about some of these other vendors doing more like very advanced AI scoring, they are tens, sometimes up to $100,000 a year or more, depending on the vendor and what you're doing. And I would love to do a challenge between the two and see which one's going to give you the best output. The other thing is that you can train this one yourself, right? So you can include a memory in this where every time you interact with within the chat, you can add more input back to help it kind of continue to learn. So there's a machine learning perspective. Like I've thought even maybe you think if sales rep comes back and gives a reason why that lead wasn't good, so it recycles back to nurture and gives the reason, you could then sync that back, trigger based on that reason being set, give them information on why that lead was recycled, add that back in, and now it learned, okay, this wasn't a good lead for this reason, I'm going to use this in my scoring going forward. Like anything, I mean, new and super kind of, can be a bit ambiguous and have lots of things you need to navigate. I mean, this isn't any exception. Test it out a lot first, figure it out. It took me a while. Like some of the hardest part was like giving the all of the details and then getting the output to come out correctly. ChatGPT 4 did a perfect job with that. It's super easy, but like the 3.5, sometimes it would give me like 5 bullet points, 6 bullet points. Sometimes it just formatted it in different ways. So like when I was using Zapier to do the text formatting, it would like screw that up, but it didn't take too long to fix that. But sometimes, it's giving you back, language and information, and you have to turn that into like fields and data to be able to add that into fields in your marketing automation platform in Salesforce. It might be interesting. I'm interested to see how this could scale, but I just did 4 leads, things like, okay, what if you're getting 1,000 leads a day? Like, is it going to work the same? Who knows? TBD on that one. I didn't include anything around behavior scoring. It was just demographic and persona-based scoring. It would be interesting to try how you would train it to understand like the different marketing activities that you're tracking. And obviously there's so much marketing activities. It's like, how do you fit that into like one prompt? I've had ideas about, obviously you've got lead source information. You could add that you could add like some campaign history information in there. Different ways of doing it. I don't think it's like impossible, but there's potentially like a ceiling to the complexity of the prompt. I think particularly with the 3.5 model compared to GPT-4, where if you keep on adding even more complexity, it starts to get a little bit confused. But, over time, I'm sure that would improve, especially it definitely did with ChatGPT-4. Who knows, that's going to continue to improve and it might become even more capable. But try to understand, how to include all of that additional data points with behavior where that someone could have done, 50 things and you need to try and score on that. I would say the Zapier use case that I showed today is probably not the best. Thinking about order of operations, you always want scoring to happen in your marketing automation platform. So building this with like a webhook or a direct integration between your marketing automation platform and OpenAI would be a lot better. So just a kind of FYI on that one. And then, you still have to pay. So there's still a cost associated with this. But I think it would be cheaper than some of the bigger vendors out there. And, generally it could perform just as good, but we'll see. I mean, there's probably going to be some backlash to that. Who knows? But I mean, I think the perfect fit for this would be Maybe you haven't set up scoring, or maybe you have. Maybe it's very simple and you want to add an AI element to it. Maybe you don't want to pay for enrichment anymore, or you don't have the budget for it, but you need to get some more kind of broad information on the companies coming in to be able to score, and you want to keep the fields short on your forms at the same time. And you just want to kind of experiment with this and be ahead of it. I think one of the biggest things with AI right now is like testing out these use cases for you, getting into the details, really figuring it out and seeing where it goes. And there's so many creative ways that you can embed this, that as you're testing out this scoring scenario, you're just coming up with so many different ideas and other ways that you could optimize your process, optimize your operations and everything that you're doing. So just getting involved and just giving it a go, I think, is probably the best bit of advice here, and just seeing how it works for you. So I'd say overall, my overall feedback on this use case is I would give it like a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it could have a lot of potential. I think if I was running a startup that didn't want to invest didn't have a load of cash to blow on enrichment and advanced lead scoring, I would probably experiment with this and see where you go and see how the performance that you get.